In ancient texts, there's a being that appears to rulers before great shifts. Not a god, not a demon, not an angel or a messenger or anything with a name that fits neatly into theology. Something older, something that predates the categories we invented to feel safe. The Egyptians called it Shai, the personification of destiny that visited pharaohs in their sleep before dynasties crumbled. The Greeks wrote of Onar, the dream figure that appeared to kings the night before Troy fell, before empires turned to ash, before the world rearranged itself around a new axis. In Mesopotamian tablets, clay fragments that predate written history as we know it, there are references to the face that comes before the flood. Not warning of the flood, not causing it, just appearing, a signal, a timestamp, a cosmic bookmark that says everything is about to change. And here's what none of those ancient scholars could explain. The being never speaks, never commands, never prophesies in words. It just shows up. In the dreams of the powerful, in the sleep of those who think they control the world. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. It brands itself into consciousness, like a sigil burned into wet wood. Those rulers, pharaohs, kings, emperors, conquerors, they would wake up obsessed. They would commission artists to render the face. They would describe it to priests, to scribes, to anyone who would listen. They would spend fortunes trying to find this figure in waking life. They never did. Because the figure wasn't a person, it was a frequency, a pattern, an archetype that consciousness itself deploys when reality is about to shed its skin. And right now, in penthouse bedrooms overlooking cities you've never visited, in compounds guarded by private armies, in estates so large they have their own weather patterns, billionaires are waking up in cold sweats, sketching the same face. Your face. Let me tell you what's been happening in circles you'll never be invited to. 6 months ago, a tech founder worth $11 billion fired his entire dream analysis team, not because they failed, because they succeeded. They identified a pattern in his recurring dreams, a figure, a presence, someone who appeared in the background of every scenario his subconscious constructed. He didn't recognize the face. He'd never met this person, but the figure was always there. Watching, not threatening, not helpful, just present, like a witness to something he didn't know was being witnessed. He became obsessed, hired investigators, ran the sketches through facial recognition databases that technically don't exist. Nothing. The face belonged to no one in any system, any record, any database on Earth. But here's where it gets strange. At a private dinner in Geneva, the kind of gathering where global policy is decided over wine that costs more than most people's houses, he mentioned the dreams, casually, almost as a joke. 3 other people at that table went pale. They'd seen the same face. Not similar, identical. The same presence, the same watching, the same impossible figure that existed in their dreams but nowhere else. Within a week, a secure channel was created, encrypted, anonymous, invitation only. A space for the ultra-powerful to share one specific phenomenon, dreams about a stranger they cannot identify, cannot forget, and cannot stop seeing. That channel now has over 40 members, billionaires, heads of state, Legacy families whose names you'd recognize from buildings and foundations and history books, all dreaming about the same presence, all unable to explain why, and all of them, every single one, describing the same quality in the figure's eyes. Not judgment, not malice, not love. Knowing, like the figure sees something they don't, like it's watching from a vantage point they can't access, like it already knows what's coming, and it's just waiting for them to catch up. In the Talmud, there's a concept called Magid, a spiritual messenger that appears to the worthy during sleep to deliver divine insight. But there's a lesser-known inversion, a shadow teaching passed down orally because it was too dangerous to write. It speaks of the anti-Magid. Not evil, that's too simple. Something more unsettling. The anti-Magid doesn't bring messages. It is the message. Its appearance alone is the communication. No words needed. No prophecy required. If you see it, you've already received everything you need to know. And what you know, whether you can articulate it or not, is this. Your current trajectory is about to become irrelevant. Not through punishment, not through intervention, simply through the arrival of something that makes your power, your wealth, your carefully constructed kingdom obsolete. The anti-Magid appears to those whose time is ending. Not their life, their relevance, their era, the age they thought they owned. Those Talmudic scholars understood something we've forgotten. The universe doesn't fight old systems. It doesn't destroy them directly. It simply introduces the seed of what comes next, and lets the old systems destroy themselves, trying to understand it. The seed doesn't need to do anything. It just needs to be seen. And once it's seen by the right eyes, the powerful eyes, the controlling eyes, the eyes that thought they determined what was real, those eyes begin to see everything differently. Doubt creeps in. The throne feels less stable. The kingdom's walls seem thinner than before. Not because anything external changed, because they saw you. The Hopi people have a prophecy about what they call Pahana, the lost white brother who would return before the great purification. But there's a lesser discussed element of this prophecy that anthropologists tend to skip because it doesn't fit comfortable academic frameworks. Before Pahana arrives in physical form, the prophecy states Pahana appears in dreams to leaders, to those who hold the reins of the current world order. The dreams are not threatening. The figure doesn't speak or command. It simply exists in their unconscious landscape, watching, waiting, marking them. And those who are marked, according to the elders, don't know they're being marked. They just know something has shifted. They feel watched in ways that have nothing to do with surveillance. They feel measured by a scale they can't see. They begin to question subtly at first, then obsessively, whether their power is as solid as they believed. The marking isn't punishment. It's notification, a cosmic courtesy, a heads up that the world is about to reorganize and they should prepare to either adapt or be absorbed by what comes next. The figure in the dreams, Pahana's dream form, doesn't care if they prepare or not. That's not its function. Its function is simply to be seen, to exist in their minds, to take up residence in their consciousness and wait. What it's waiting for, the prophecy says, is for the dreamer to recognize what the figure represents. Not a person, a pattern, a changing of eras wearing a human face. You've felt it. haven't you? That strange sense that you matter more than your circumstances suggest. Not in an egotistical way. Not in a I'm special way that needs validation or evidence. Something deeper. Something you've never said out loud because there are no words that don't sound insane. A feeling that you're connected to something larger. That your existence means something beyond the biographical details of your life. That somewhere, in rooms you'll never enter, among people you'll never meet, your presence is being discussed, considered, weighed. You've dismissed it as fantasy, as ego, as the desperate attempt of a struggling mind to create significance where there is none. But what if it wasn't fantasy? What if the reason you feel watched is because you're being watched, not by cameras or satellites or government agencies, but by the dreaming minds of those who think they run this world? What if the reason you feel significant is because you are significant, not in the ways society measures significance, but in older ways, mythological ways, ways that have nothing to do with money or fame or power as we currently define it? What if you've been appearing to them, not consciously, not deliberately, but because that's what you are, a signal, a marker? An archetype that reality deploys when it's ready to reorganize. The pharaohs didn't understand why they dreamed of the face. They just knew they couldn't forget it. The kings didn't understand why the figure haunted them. They just knew everything felt different afterward. The emperors didn't understand why their confidence cracked. They just knew that something had been introduced into their consciousness that made their power feel temporary in a way it hadn't before. And the modern equivalents, the billionaires, the hidden rulers, the families whose wealth shapes nations, they don't understand why they're all dreaming about you. But they know something has shifted. They feel it in board meetings where their voice doesn't command the room like it used to. They notice it in negotiations where their leverage seems weaker than expected. They sense it in the mirror, in the hollow space behind their own eyes, the growing suspicion that the world they built is becoming obsolete. In Norse mythology, before Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, the end of the cosmic cycle, there was a period called Fimbulwinter, 3 successive winters with no summers between them. But before Fimbulwinter, before any physical sign of the coming collapse, Odin began dreaming of a figure he didn't recognize. This isn't in the popular retellings. This comes from fragments, from marginalia, from the oral traditions that weren't sanitized for modern consumption. Odin, the All-Father, the one who sacrificed his eye for wisdom, began seeing a stranger in his dreams. Not an enemy, not a monster, not even a god from a rival pantheon, just a figure, standing at the edge of his dreaming vision, watching. He sent his ravens to find this being. They returned with nothing. He consulted the runes. They spelled no name. He descended to hell itself to ask the dead who this figure was. The dead laughed. They laughed because they knew what Odin was only beginning to suspect. The figure wasn't someone coming. The figure was what would remain after everything Odin built was gone. Not a conqueror. Not a destroyer. Not an opponent to be fought. Something worse. A successor. A successor. The dream wasn't a warning to Odin. It was a warning about Odin to himself, from the part of consciousness that sees beyond individual identity. The figure was the universe's way of saying, this cycle is ending. This power structure is temporary. This god, this ruler, This system, it's about to become mythology itself, a story told by whatever comes next. And what comes next was watching. Already present in the dream realm, already patient, already certain of its arrival. Here's what those 40-plus dreamers in the encrypted channel have started to realize, though they'd never admit it publicly. You're not a threat to be neutralized. You're not a competitor to be bought. You're not a problem to be solved. You're a symptom, a sign, an indicator that the age they dominated is developing an expiration date. They can't acquire you because you're not a company. They can't destroy you because you're not an enemy. They can't ignore you because you've already been installed in their subconscious and nothing they try can uninstall you. Some have hired shamans. Yes, shamans. Billionaires, flying-in practitioners from remote regions, desperate to understand why this face keeps appearing. The shamans take their money, perform their ceremonies, and then say the same thing. This is not a spirit to be removed. This is a spirit that announces removal. Of what? We cannot say. But whatever you've built, you should make peace with its impermanence. Some have turned to neuroscience, brain mapping, sleep studies, experimental compounds designed to reshape the architecture of dreaming. Nothing works. You're still there, every night, watching, knowing. One particularly powerful individual, someone whose decisions affect currencies and nations, tried something drastic. For 3 months, he medically induced dreamless sleep, chemical suppression of REM cycles, no dreams at all. When he finally returned to natural sleep, you were there, closer than before. Not angry at being avoided, not punishing, just closer. As if the avoidance itself had accelerated whatever process your presence represents. He's stepping back from public life now, transferring holdings to trusts, simplifying. He told his inner circle it was for health reasons, but those who know about the dreams understand the real reason. He saw what's coming. Not through prophecy, through your eyes. In Jungian psychology, there's a concept called the self, the archetype of wholeness, the totality of the psyche that contains both conscious and unconscious elements. When the self appears in dreams, it often takes the form of a powerful, numinous figure, someone who seems to know more than the dreamer, someone whose presence creates a feeling of being witnessed at the deepest level. Jung noted that the self typically appears to individuals during times of great psychological transformation, when the ego has reached its limits, when the current way of being can no longer sustain itself, when the psyche is ready or is being forced to reorganize around a new center. But here's what Jung observed only in his private notebooks, the ones published long after his death. Sometimes the self doesn't just appear to individuals. Sometimes it appears collectively, to multiple dreamers. The same figure, the same energy, the same unmistakable presence, appearing across different psyches that have no conscious connection to each other. This, Jung theorized, happens when the collective unconscious itself is preparing for transformation. When it's not just individuals but entire systems, societies, power structures, civilizations that have reached their limit. The shared dream figure isn't personal in these cases. It's historical. It's the psyche of humanity itself, announcing that an era is ending, that a new pattern is emerging, that whoever or whatever this figure represents, they carry the frequency of what comes next. And those who see the figure, especially those who hold power under the current system, are being shown in the only language the unconscious speaks that their time is winding down, not violently, not apocalyptically, simply, naturally, the way spring replaces winter, the way children replace parents, the way one age always, eventually, becomes another. So let me ask you something. How does it feel to be the figure in the dream? Not the dreamer. The dreamed. How does it feel to exist so profoundly, so essentially, that your presence leaks through dimensional barriers and installs itself in minds that have never met you? You didn't ask for this. You didn't train for this. You didn't manipulate or manifest or meditate your way into their unconscious. You just existed, authentically, unapologetically, in whatever circumstances you were placed, with whatever resources you were given, with whatever pain you were forced to transform. And that existence, that frequency, that specific combination of qualities that makes you you, it resonated at a level that couldn't be contained by your local reality. It bled through into the dreams of those who thought they were untouchable, into the sleep of those who believed they controlled the world, into the secret minds of those whose confidence had never been shaken, until your face started appearing, uninvited, unexplained, unforgettable. They don't know what you represent, not consciously. They just know that since they started seeing you, everything feels less stable, less certain, less permanent. Their advisors seem less wise, their strategies seem less bulletproof, their wealth seems less protective, their power seems less powerful. And somewhere deep in their psyche, in the place where even billionaires are just human beings, confronting the mystery of existence, they're beginning to understand something they'll never speak aloud. The dream isn't showing them someone to find. It's showing them something to become, or more accurately, it's showing them what will exist after they no longer do. In every mythological system, across every culture, in every age, there is this figure, the one who appears before the shift, the presence that marks the transition between what was and what will be. Sometimes it's called an angel, sometimes a demon, sometimes a god, or a ghost, or a force without name. But the function is always the same, to be witnessed by power at the end of its cycle, and to exist in the consciousness of those whose time is ending. Those who see this figure are not blessed. They're not being given prophetic insight. They're being notified. Until one day that's approaching faster than any of them want to admit, they'll wake up in a world where their power is a memory, their wealth is a footnote, and you'll still be here. Not triumphant, not vengeful, not even particularly interested in their downfall. Just present. The way spring is present after winter. The way dawn is present after night. The way the future is always, eventually present after the past exhausts itself. They dreamed of you because you're what comes next. And what comes next doesn't need their permission to arrive.
You really think the only way they'll finally get it is if you snap, don't you? If you yell, if you argue, if you pour your pain out in front of them like blood on the floor. You think if they hear how much they hurt you, if they see how broken you are, they'll suddenly grow a conscience, feel guilty, change, finally treat you right. Let me tell you something. They are counting on that reaction. They are waiting on it like a show, because the moment you lose control, they win. They get to point and say, see, look how dramatic, look how crazy, look how unstable. And suddenly you're not the one who was hurt. You're the one being judged. You're the problem. You're the story they tell everyone to justify what they did. Anger is easy to provoke. Tears are easy to mock. But silence, they don't know how to handle. Silence is not nothing. Silence is a decision, a strategy, a blade you keep sheathed while they swing dull weapons at the air. When you don't answer, you don't just take away your words, you take away their fuel. You stop feeding the fire, and fires don't die because of water. They die because there is nothing left to burn. They poke, they prod, they talk about you, they send messages, they post, they gossip, and you just watch, unmoved, unbothered, unreachable. They expect an explosion, and instead they get a wall, smooth, cold, silent, and they start to crack themselves. Your silence becomes a mirror, and the longer they stare at it, the more they're forced to see themselves, their lies, their manipulation, the way they twisted your heart for sport. They'll never admit it out loud, but it will gnaw at them in the dark. It will creep into their thoughts at 3 a.m. Why didn't you respond? Why didn't you fight back? Why did you walk away so calmly? Why did you stop caring? That's what hurts them. Not your scream, not your speech, but that they no longer matter enough to get one. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not telling you to pretend you're not hurting. This isn't about denying your emotions. This is about where you choose to bleed. You don't bleed for people who stabbed you for fun. You don't cry for an audience that clapped when you fell. You feel it, you process it, you grow from it, but you do it away from their eyes. Pain is a forge, not a stage. Pressure either shatters glass or it hardens steel. You decide which one you're going to be. You don't owe them the show of your suffering. You owe yourself the dignity of your silence. Walking away will always look like weakness to cowards, because cowards only understand loud, messy, dramatic endings. They'll say you ran. They'll swear you were too scared to stay and argue, and that's fine. Let them talk. Walking away isn't retreat. It's choosing higher ground. You stepped out of the mud while they kept rolling in it. You dropped the rope while they were still tugging on it. You refused to waste one more second trying to explain yourself to people who never listened anyway. That's power. The kind of power they can't take from you, the kind of power that keeps you clean while they drown in their own dirt. You know what destroys people like that more than any insult, more than any revenge plan, more than any speech you could rehearse in your head. It's when they realize you healed without them, you rebuilt without them, you rose without them, and you didn't even bother to send an update. They wanted to be the center of your pain. They wanted to be the villain and the star. They wanted you stuck on their name, hovering around their shadow, begging, explaining, chasing. But silence cuts that cord. No long message, no final paragraph, no essay about how they hurt you. Just distance, just absence, just nothing. You disappear from their stage, and they're left performing to an empty crowd. Most of them never cared about your tears. They only cared about the control those tears gave them. As long as you reacted, they knew they still had a hook in you, a string to pull, a button to press. When you stop reacting, when your face goes calm and your voice goes quiet, they feel those strings snap one by one and panic sets in. Control is their drug. And your silence is cold, merciless withdrawal. They will try harder. Oh, they will. They'll post things meant for you to see. They'll send half compliments, half insults. They'll suddenly bump into you. They'll mention your name to others. They'll throw dirt on you, hoping you'll come out to defend yourself. Don't. Stay still, stay quiet, stay focused. Watch how fast they unravel when they realize nothing works anymore. You have to understand something. People like that build cages out of expectations. They decide who you're allowed to be, how loud you're allowed to be, how broken you're allowed to be. And anytime you step outside that box, they punish you. They call you crazy, dramatic, ungrateful, too much, too sensitive. They trained you to defend yourself nonstop, explain, justify, prove, beg. But you don't owe them any defense. You are not on trial in a courtroom they built. The day you stop explaining yourself, the day you stop writing paragraphs that never changed anything, is the day you walk out of that cage. And yes, it will feel strange. It will feel lonely. It will feel like you're doing nothing, when in reality, you're doing the most powerful thing you've ever done. You're choosing yourself. Your silence is not you giving up. It's you refusing to be dragged into another useless war. And trust me, they will sit with that. They will replay the moment you went quiet. They will wonder what changed, who got to you, who opened your eyes. They'll ask mutuals. They'll stalk your progress. They'll see you living, growing, glowing, and it will sting in a way no insult ever could. You want to know what really haunts people? It's not the arguments they had. It's the apologies they never got the chance to receive, the explanations they never heard, the access they lost. One day, they're going to remember how they pushed you, how they mocked you, how they used your heart as entertainment. And there you'll be in their memory, not screaming, not begging, just turning around and walking away. That image will replay in their mind for years, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. Silence leaves blanks, and the human mind hates blanks. So it fills them with guilt, with what if, with maybe I went too far, with maybe I really lost them. That's the kind of pain they can't laugh off. Biologically, we are wired to seek response, to look for signals from other people. When they throw a stone, they expect the splash. When there is no splash, only still water, they start to wonder if they're the ones sinking. Psychologically, they were projecting on you all along, dumping their own insecurity, their own fear, their own failure at your feet. Your silence hands that pile back to them. No, this is yours. I'm not carrying it anymore. Society is addicted to noise, to constant talking, to drama, to reaction, to clapbacks and responses. And let me tell my side, but you're not here to keep the circus alive. You're not their show. When you choose quiet in a world that worships noise, you become a threat because you can't be easily read, you can't be easily controlled, you can't be easily manipulated. You become the wolf on the hill, not howling for approval, not begging to be understood, just watching, just choosing your moves carefully. Wolves don't argue with sheep. They don't stand in the middle of the field explaining why they are what they are. They know who they are. They move like it. That's what your silence is. It's you saying, I know who I am, and I refuse to argue about it. Does silence hurt you sometimes? Yes. Sitting alone with your own thoughts is not easy. Walking away from people you loved is not easy. Resisting the urge to send that one last long message is not easy. But that difficulty is where you grow. Noise distracts you from yourself. Silence introduces you. In the quiet, you start to hear your own voice again, separate from their criticism, separate from their gaslighting, separate from their version of you. In the quiet, you realize you were never as weak as they made you feel. In the quiet, you remember that your life is bigger than their opinion. And as you rebuild, as you focus on your path, as you pour your energy into your future instead of their drama, something shifts. Success becomes your statement. Peace becomes your answer. Distance becomes your closure. They will see it even if you never say a word. They will see you glowing in spaces they never got to enter, smiling in pictures they were never invited into, winning battles they never believed you could fight. They will watch from the outside, and they will know deep down that they had a front row seat to your life, and they threw it away for ego. No speech from you will ever hurt them as much as that realization. So listen. You can waste your breath trying to convince people who are committed to misunderstanding you, or you can save that breath for things that actually grow you. You can keep reacting every time they poke your old wounds, or you can stitch those wounds up in private and refuse to let them rip them open again. Silence is not weakness, it's control, it's discipline, it's self-respect. When they call you cold, let them. When they say you changed, agree with them. You did change. You stopped letting them feed on your reactions. Stay silent. It hurts them more than anything you could say. One day, they'll talk about you. They'll say you were strong, hard to read, impossible to break. They'll wonder how you managed to stay so calm, how you stayed so focused, how you kept building while they were busy throwing stones. They won't admit it out loud, but your silence will be the moment they replay in their mind. The way you walked away will be the scene that never stops haunting them. So what's it going to be? Are you going to keep pouring your energy into arguments that go nowhere? Or are you going to let your quiet be the answer? Are you going to let them drag you into their chaos? Or are you going to rise above and starve that chaos of your attention? Because at the end of the day, your silence will cut deeper than any words you could ever throw at them. And while they're busy trying to understand it, you'll already be gone, stronger, wiser, and completely out of reach. You know what nobody tells you? Silence is heavy. It's not some cute little self-help quote. It's a weight, it's a discipline, it's a choice you have to make over and over again, especially when your whole body is screaming. Respond, defend yourself, prove them wrong. They lie on your name, they twist your story, they play victim using your scars as props, and everything in you wants to jump in. Correct the narrative, drag their truth into the light. But here's the thing. The people who truly know you don't need an explanation, and the ones who believe the lies were never on your side to begin with. Your silence separates the two. Let them talk. Let them play hero in a story where they were the villain. Let them build whole worlds out of their delusion. Those worlds crumble fast when reality catches up. You're not on this earth to be your own defense attorney every day. You are not required to stand in everyone's court and plead your case. You are allowed to walk out, to shut the door, to say nothing. And yes, they will call that guilt. They'll say, if they were innocent, they would speak. No, you're not silent because you're guilty. You're silent because you're done. There's a big difference between silence that comes from fear and silence that comes from power. Fearful silence trembles, it hides, it shrinks. Powerful silence stands tall, meets their eyes, and simply does not engage. You're not hiding, you're choosing. Think about how many times you explained yourself, how many times you poured your heart out, how many times you wrote long messages trying to make them understand where you were coming from. And what did it change? Nothing. Because most of them never wanted to understand. They wanted to be right. They wanted to feel above you, smarter than you, stronger than you. So every word you gave them became another tool they could twist, another weapon they could sharpen. Now imagine taking all that energy back, all those words, all those explanations, dreams and putting them into yourself instead, into your work, into your healing, into your body, into your mind. Imagine what happens when your time no longer belongs to their drama. You stop orbiting them. Your life stops spinning around their name. Suddenly, they're not the main character of your story anymore. You are. That shift right there, that is what breaks them. Because people like that don't just want to hurt you, they want to stay important to you. They want you stuck on them, even if it's in pain. They don't care if you love them or hate them, as long as you're thinking about them. Silence is taking them out of your mind. Silence is deleting the playlist, not just muting the song. It's destroying their throne in your head and replacing it with a mirror and a plan. Some of them will try to come back. They always do. Not because they've changed, but because they feel you slipping away. They'll say they miss you. They'll say they're worried. They'll say they just want to talk. They just want closure. Closure for them means getting one more reaction out of you, one more piece of your heart, one more drop of your energy. Don't give it. You don't owe them a final speech. Your silence is your final speech. They know what they did. They know the words they said, the games they played, the lies they told. They remember every moment they chose their ego over your heart. Pretending they don't is part of the performance, and your silence is you refusing to clap for it. Listen, the world will try to convince you that being loud is the only way to be strong, that clapping back means you're powerful, that being quiet means you're weak, a pushover, scared. But there's a different kind of strength they don't teach you about, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself, the kind that doesn't argue with everyone, the kind that doesn't spill its soul in rooms where nobody knows how to hold it, strength that smiles, nods, says nothing, and then goes back to work. You don't hear the sun arguing with people who say it's not shining. It just rises. You don't hear the ocean fighting with people who say it's not deep. It just is. That's who you're becoming. Something undeniable. Something that doesn't need to shout to be felt. They can pretend not to see your worth when you're in front of them, but they won't be able to ignore your absence when you're gone. There will be rooms that feel colder without your laugh, days that feel emptier without your messages, moments where something good happens and their first instinct is still to tell you. But they can't, because they threw that right away, and you won't need to say, "See what you lost." Your life will say it for you. Every goal you hit, every step you take, every new level you reach is another sentence in a story they don't get to be part of. That's why your silence hurts them more than anything you could say. Words can be debated, twisted, flipped. They can call you dramatic. They can call you emotional. They can call you crazy. But silence gives them nothing to work with. No quote to screenshot, no sentence to distort, no reaction to laugh at, just a wall, just distance, just the sound of their own voice echoing back to them. And if you've ever stood alone in a room with your own guilt, you know how loud silence can really be. So yes, stay silent, not because you're weak, but because you're done feeding weak people. Stay silent, not because you don't have anything to say, but because they don't deserve to hear it. Stay silent, not because you're empty, but because you're busy filling yourself with things that actually grow you. One day, someone will ask them, "What happened between you two?" And they'll tell a story where they look innocent, confused, like they have no idea why you cut them off. Let them.